Matthew 12, they're out in the field. They're eating. Why? Because they're hungry. It doesn't get much more normal than this kind of thing. People who are lost are hungry. People who are found, his disciples, they're hungry. The question is this: what are they hungering for? Let's look in both situations. You say, well, food. That's at one level. The other level, if you're sitting around with Jesus, if you're hanging with Jesus, whether it's in the house or whether you're in the field, you're hungry for God. The food, the physical food, is just an offshoot. That's okay. But to be honest with you, what Matthew 9 and what Matthew 12 are about is having to do with hunger for God. I ain't leaving the table that Jesus is at. There's no way. He's going in the fields. I'm going in the fields with him because I'm hungry. I'm hungry for more. Great sermon yesterday. I'm hungry for more. I've got to be strengthened more to be able to sit at the table of Matthew 9 and to go out into the world in Matthew 12. The question has to be asked. Jesus could have asked it. When it's like, what are you doing? It's like, well, shouldn't we eat? Are we denied the right to eat? I mean, is that what part of this is? Shouldn't the sinners be fed? Shouldn't God meet them? You see, there's a lot of judgment going on here. Jesus is making one judgment call. Pharisees are making a different judgment call. Jesus is basically asking the question, do they deserve, whether they're in the field or in the house, do they deserve condemnation or mercy? See, he says to the Pharisees the same kind of thing that he said on Palm Sunday. Have you not read? Now, all of us in this room know, and so did Jesus, and so do the Pharisees. That's not a real question. Have you not read? Of course they've read. They read Psalm 8. They've read Hosea 6. There's no doubt about it. But then he adds, if you had known what it means. In other words, yeah, I've read the Bible. Then why don't you know God? Why don't you know his greatest desires for mercy? How have you been reading it? What have you been looking for? You're looking for a rule book? You're looking for a nice courtroom scene? You're looking for something to push people around with Scripture? I mean, what exactly? What's motivating you? Because certainly, if you had known God, if you had known his desires, you wouldn't be questioning me in the house, and you wouldn't be questioning me in the fields either, for that matter. You would have got it. That God is a desiring God of mercy. If you had known is a really nice way, a Jesus way, of saying you don't know God and you don't know mercy. You don't know either one. Now, in Matthew 12, I don't know if he's referring back to Matthew 9. I told you to go away and learn, and you didn't. I don't know if that's what he's doing, if you had known. Or if he's referring to the nation of Israel. He's looking at the Pharisees, the religious leaders, to the book of Hosea, specifically Hosea 6, and said, you know, you guys have probably read that 1,000 times. If you had known, if you got the allegory, if you saw what the book of Hosea is about a prophet named Hosea who's told to go and marry a loose woman as a representation of God and the nation of Israel, that he said, I do at Mount Sinai, and he continued, even though she went out time and time and time. Do you want to talk about tax collectors and sinners? Do you really want to talk about them? Or do you want to look at everybody, that everybody has been unfaithful? The whole nation of Israel. Why do you continue to separate tax collectors, sinners, Levites, Reubenites? To tell you the truth, the whole bunch of you. But Jesus doesn't go down that road. He tells them a story from 1 Samuel 21 about David, which that to me fascinates me. 1 Samuel 21, verses 1 through 9.
Then David came to Nob and Ahimelech the priest, and Ahimelech came trembling to meet David and said to him, Why are you alone and no one with you? David said to the priest, The king has commissioned me with a matter and has said to me, Let no one know anything about the matter on which I am sending you.
Lie.
And with which I have commissioned you.
Lie.
And I have directed the young men to a certain place.
Lie.
Now, therefore, what do you have on hand? Give me 5 loaves of bread or whatever can be found.
Blasphemy.
The priest answered David and said, There is no ordinary bread on hand, but there is consecrated bread, if only the young men had kept themselves from women. David answered the priest and said to him, Surely women have been kept from us, as previously, when I set out with the vessels of the young men, were holy.
Probably true.
Though it is an ordinary journey, how much more than today will their vessels be holy? So the priest gave him consecrated bread, for there was no bread there but the bread of the presence, which was removed from before the Lord, in order to put hot bread in its place when it was taken away. Now one of the servants of Saul was there that day, detained before the Lord. His name was Doeg, the Edomite, the chief of Saul's shepherds. David said to Ahimelech, Now is there not a spear or a sword on hand? For I brought neither my sword nor my weapons with me, because the king's matter was urgent. Then the priest said, The sword of Goliath the Philistine, whom you killed in the valley of Elah, behold, it is wrapped in a cloth behind the ephod. If you would take it for yourself, take it, for there is no other except it here. And David said, There is none like it, give it to me.
Now, I don't know if you noticed, I was saying it under my breath, but he's lying through his teeth constantly. I don't know how many lies there are there. But you know, some people do that when they're hungry. Some people will say whatever they got to say. I really don't care, I'm starving. And so are my men. God doesn't take issue with them. In fact, Jesus refers to him and says, Did you ever read that story? What did you get out of it? Even Ahimelech recognized that David was hungry. I seriously doubt whether Ahimelech believed a word that came out of David's mouth. But ultimately what he did was he took the holy showbread that no man was supposed to eat except for the Levites. And there's a whole message in the showbread. You know, from the showbread to the sword, there's some great messages in that story. I don't know, it explodes from the bread to the sword, all kinds of stuff. A church that actually meets the needs of people, regardless of religion, regardless of anything. Anyway, there's all kinds of neat stuff. But it's a fascinating thing that Jesus refers to. What did you get out of it? Did you read that story or didn't you? Now, he knows they did, especially David of all people. Oh yeah, baby, I read that story. I'm still trying to figure out why Ahimelech gave him that holy bread. We're not going to get into it, but in the following chapter, 1 Samuel 22, when Saul finds out from Doeg goes and tells Saul Ahimelech gave David. Because this is the time in David's life where Saul is chasing him all over the wilderness. Crazy Saul. He's chasing him all over the place. Doeg goes and tells Saul because he's one of his henchmen. Saul gets so mad, he tells his henchmen to kill Ahimelech, all of his sons, and everybody in the village of Nob. His henchmen won't do it. So he tells Doeg, you do it. And Doeg does. Doeg goes and he kills Ahimelech, 85 priests, and everybody, man, woman, and child, in the village of Nob. Wipes out the whole village. That's how the story ends for Ahimelech. But the story is definitely about David. The quote is definitely from Hosea. When you put David and Hosea together, you almost get this kind of a message. The law calls for sacrifice. Love desires mercy. And if you knew this, you would not condemn the hungry for being hungry. Psalm 40, verses 6 through 8.
Sacrifice and meal offering thou hast not desired. My ears thou hast opened. Burnt offering and sin offering thou hast not required. Then I said, Behold, I come. In the scroll of the book it is written of me. I delight to do thy will, O my God. Thy law is within my heart.
Those are the same verses. That's messianic about Jesus. They're repeated again in Hebrew. It's written of me in the scroll of the book, the whole thing. Sacrifice and offering you have not required. Your law is actually written in my heart. It doesn't hold me hostage. Love desires mercy. If you knew this, you wouldn't condemn the hungry for being hungry. Remember in John 8, where are your accusers? Who condemns you? She says no one. You see the bottom line in that, the story of the woman caught in adultery and that whole thing. The whole message of let him who is without sin is that woman represents all of us, quite frankly. She got caught The rest of us haven't got caught. But God sees. And there's a lot of people that are condemning of everybody's actions. It doesn't matter what it is. We can have a field day. I wish I had a great big chalkboard. We can write down all the sins we did this last week. Let's start with you, Russ. Boy, do I feel uncomfortable. Who's interested other than a Pharisee? Nobody's interested. Jesus, there is no condemnation. I'm not in the condemnation. I don't condemn people for what they're doing. This will blow away, our whole kind of our theology. We've got a theology that, thinks that God is just waiting for us to get an E on a report card so he can flunk us. When he's not even looking at a report card. He has no report card. Behold, I come to you. He's looking, just come to me, all you who labor. Come to me, come to me. Let's go through the fields. Let's have a dinner party. Whatever. This is not about condemnation. It's about mercy. It's all about mercy. Every one of us, what do we desire the most? Is mercy. God, I don't want to be in a place of being condemned and feeling like I've let my dad down and everything else. Who needs that? God knows what we need. We need mercy. And he's the only one that can provide it. He knows. He looks at each one that he has created, and each one is valuable. Call them what you will. Call them tax collectors. Call them Muslims. I don't give a rip what you call them. Every single one is valuable. We have got to somehow change our way of thinking and see and understand God's desire and be the agents of that. Who isn't guilty? But every person is valuable. Like I said, the whole book of Hosea is an allegory about God as a husband and his unfaithful wife. They met it at Mount Sinai. They made a covenant. Israel broke it constantly. God never did. Never broke his covenant. Now let's go to Hosea. Because in Hosea 6, there's much more than Israel at stake. Would you read verses 4 through 7? Just kind of read it sort of slow and picture whether you want to think in terms of a father with a son, a husband with a wife, the intense kind of unfaithfulness and the whole thing, and God is saying to them,
O Ephraim, what shall I do with you?
what am I going to do with you?
O Judah, what shall I do with
What
you?
am I going to do with you?
For your wavering loyalty, kindness are transient, like the morning cloud and like the dew that goes away early. Therefore, I have hewn them in pieces by the words of the prophets. I have slain them by the words of my mouth. My judgments, pronounced upon them by the prophets, are like the light that shines forth, obvious to all.
He has not been short on revealing their problems, is what he's saying. I've really made it clear. I haven't danced around these issues. I've shown you the things that need to be addressed. What am I going to do with you? You're not even trying